There is a small pack of beef sitting in the cold case at the market tonight, the thin cut, sliced so fine you can near see the light through it, and it costs less than a cup of coffee. Most folks walk right past it toward the good steaks in their trays and do not give it a thought. 100 grams, 200 if the family is large. It looks like nothing at all, like the shavings left behind after the real meat was carried away, and in truth that is very near what it is. And I am going to tell you tonight that this little handful of nothing once fed 8 people at my mother's table in a year when there was almost nothing to eat, and it fed them so well that I am an old woman now, and I have not forgotten it in all the years since. It is called gyudon. Beef over rice, that is the whole of the name and the whole of the dish. Sweet and salty beef, onions gone soft and brown, and a broth that soaks down into the rice underneath and makes even plain rice taste of something. These days it is sold at the counter shops, a bowl handed across in a minute and a half, and everyone has come to believe it is a shop food, a bought thing, a thing made somewhere far off and warmed through for you. And I want to say it plain, right at the start, because it matters more than anything else I will tell you today. Gyudon is not shop food. Gyudon is poor food. Gyudon is what we made when there was no food. It came up out of the hard years, and it was built by women trying to feed too many people with too little meat, and the shops did not invent it. The shops only sold it back to us. Now here is what it truly is at the bottom of it. It is a way to take almost no meat and make it taste like a great deal of meat. The beef is not the meal. The beef is only the flavor. The onion is the body, and onion is cheap and sweet, and it drinks up all that beefiness and gives it back, so that a spoonful of onion tastes as beefy as the beef does. And the rice is the food, the real food, the thing that fills a stomach and sends a body to bed satisfied. So you take 1 small pack of the cheapest beef there is, and 3 or 4 onions, and a pot of rice, and a little sugar and a little soy, and 8 people stand up from that table full. 8. That is the old arithmetic, and it is a beautiful thing, and nobody taught it to us in a school. Hunger taught it. And there is nothing hard in it. If you can slice an onion, you can make this. It asks 20 minutes and a little knowing, and I will give you both. Let me show you, step by step. I was a small child in the years after the war. I will not make it heavier than it was, for children do not know they are poor. They only know they are hungry. But I remember the rice. There was not enough of it, and what there was got stretched with barley, with sweet potato, with radish, with whatever would swell up in the pot, and we ate that and were glad. Meat was a story people told each other. And then one evening my mother came in with a paper packet folded small in her hand, and there was beef in it. I never asked what she gave for it. She never said. I am old enough now to have my ideas, and I would rather not have them. She put the pot on the fire and sliced onions, a mountain of onions for that little scrap of meat, and cooked them down soft and sweet, and only at the very end did the beef go in, and the smell. It went out of the kitchen and through the house and out the door, and all of us children came in from wherever we were without being called. We simply came. She divided that packet among 8 bowls of rice, and it was not much on any one bowl, and it did not matter one bit, because the broth had gone down into the rice and the whole bowl tasted of beef, top to bottom. That is the thing I have carried my whole life. Not the beef. The broth. My mother did not feed us meat that night. She fed us the flavor of meat, spread out over enough rice to fill 8 stomachs, and every one of us went to bed feeling rich. There is a wisdom in that which no cooking school teaches, that flavor can be stretched further than food, and that a woman who knows how to stretch flavor can feed anybody with anything. Before I go further, I want to say one quick thing. The old ways my family kept, there is more of it than fits in any one video. I have gathered the whole of it into a book, and you will find it at the link below. The book is the long version. If you want it, it is there. I will not mention it again. Now, we begin with the beef, and here is the first thing folks get wrong, and it is the very heart of the dish, so hear me. You do not want good beef. I mean that plainly. You want the thin cut, the shaved cut, the belly or the shoulder sliced near as thin as paper, the fatty, cheap kind they sell for hot pot. Not steak, not a good thick cut. If you cannot find the shaved kind, take a cheap fatty piece home, put it in the freezer for half an hour until it is firm but not hard, and then slice it yourself as thin as your knife will allow across the grain. And here is why thin, and it is the whole reason this dish exists. Thin beef cooks in seconds. It goes tender at once and gives up its flavor at once, straight into the broth where it spreads out and flavors everything else in the pot. A thick piece of beef holds its flavor inside itself, selfishly, and you must eat the beef to taste the beef. A thin piece gives its flavor away to the broth and the onions and the rice, and then everybody at the table tastes it, whether they got much beef or hardly any. Thick beef feeds 1, thin beef feeds 8. That is not a small thing. That is the whole invention. And do not be shy of the fat. The white marbling through that cheap cut is your friend, for it melts into the broth and carries the richness with it, and a lean cut gives a thin, sad bowl. Cheap and fatty and thin, that is the rule, and it is the opposite of everything you were taught about buying meat. Now the onions, and I want you to use more than you think. 2 large ones at the very least, 3 or 4 if the family is big and the beef is small. And here is the truth of it plainly. The poorer you are, the more onions go in. That is not a shame. That is the whole cleverness. Onion is sweet, and onion is cheap, and onion holds broth the way a sponge holds water, so every soft brown slice of it comes out of the pot tasting exactly as beefy as the beef. Slice them with the grain, from top to root, in slices about as thick as a pencil, for sliced that way they cook soft, but hold together and do not fall to mush. Now the broth, and this is the soul of the whole thing. 4 plain things and no more. Dashi, or plain water at a pinch, soy sauce, sugar, and mirin if you have it, or a little sake, or nothing at all if you have neither. That is the entire seasoning. There is nothing hidden in this dish, no secret packet, no bottle of anything you cannot name. Now dashi. If you have it, it is better. It is only water warmed with a bit of kombu, the sea kelp, and a handful of dried bonito shavings, steeped a few minutes and strained, and it lays a deep savor under everything. But if you have none, I will not have you go without your supper. Plain water will make gyudon. The poor kitchens I grew up in did not always have dashi either. Do not let the perfect thing keep you from the good thing. Into the pot goes your dashi or your water, a shallow amount, only enough to come up around the onions and not swim them. Then the soy and the sugar, and here is where you must taste, for this is the balance the whole dish rests on. It wants to be sweet and salty both, leaning sweet, sweeter than a foreigner expects, sweet enough that a child will eat it happily. Start with a good spoonful of sugar and a good pour of soy, and taste it and adjust it, and get it right now while there is nothing else in the pot to hide behind. A flat broth now makes a flat bowl later, and a bit of ginger, sliced thin if you have a knob of it, for it cuts the fat and freshens the whole thing. That is not required, but it is worth doing. Now, in go the onions, and here is the second great rule, and folks break it constantly. The onions go in first, alone, and they cook a good while, not 2 minutes. A good 5 or 6 or 8 minutes, at a gentle simmer, with the lid on, until they have gone soft and clear and slumped, and given up their sharpness and turned sweet. Why? Because a raw onion is sharp and hard and tastes of onion, and a slow-cooked onion is sweet and soft and tastes of the broth, and this whole dish depends on the onion being sweet. And because if you put the beef in with the onions at the start, the beef will cook for 8 minutes and turn to gray leather, and the whole thing is ruined. So, onions alone first, cook down soft. This is the only patience the dish asks of you, and it asks for less than 10 minutes of it. And now the beef, and here's the last rule, and it matters as much as all the rest together. Turn the heat down until the broth is barely moving. Lay the beef in, spreading the slices out with your chopsticks so they do not clump, and cook it a very short while, under a minute, just until the red is gone and no longer. The moment it turns from red to brown, it is done, and every second after that is a second of it turning tough. A gray foam will rise as the beef goes in. Skim it off with a spoon and throw it away, for that is what clouds a bowl and dulls the flavor, and it takes you 5 seconds to be rid of it. Then off the heat. Beef cooked briefly in a calm broth is tender and silky. Beef boiled hard for 5 minutes is a chewy gray rag in a cloudy pot. That is the whole difference, and it is entirely in your hands, and it is decided in about 40 seconds. Now, I must show you the fork in the road, because there are 2 ways, and folks are fierce about them, and neither is wrong. The first is the plain way, the old way, the way of the hard years. Hot rice in the bowl, the beef and onion lifted over it with the chopsticks, and then, and do not skip this, a good ladle of that broth spooned over the whole bowl so it runs down through the rice. That broth going into the rice is the entire point of the dish. A bowl of gyudon with dry rice underneath is a bowl that has missed its own purpose. Then a little heap of the red pickled ginger on the side, sharp and bright against all that sweet richness, and a scatter of green onion. That is all. That is how we ate it, and it is perfect. And the second way, the way that started later when there was more to be had, is with an egg. Some crack a raw yolk right on top and break it and stir it through the hot beef so it goes creamy and rich all through the bowl. Some poach it soft and slide it over, some scramble it soft and lay it alongside. And I will tell you folks, defend their egg or defend their no egg the way they defend their own mother, and I am not going to settle it for you. Both are honest, both are old enough now. The plain bowl is the bowl of the hard years, and the egg bowl is the bowl of a little more comfort, and there is room in a life for both. Now, a word on keeping it, because I want this to be a thing you make and not just a thing you admire. The beef and onion in their broth keep 2 or 3 days in the cold box, and warm well, though the beef goes a touch firmer, so warm it low and do not boil it again. And this is the make-ahead supper of all make-ahead suppers. Cook the whole pot on a Sunday, and all week a body has only to warm a ladleful and put rice under it. It freezes beautifully, too, in small portions, and a bag of it in the freezer means you are never far from a proper meal on a night when you have nothing left in you. And now the part the old kitchens never forgot, the broth that is left. Do not you dare pour that away. Pour it over plain rice the next morning with a raw egg, and you have a breakfast. Simmer rice in it with an egg stirred through, and you have zosui, a soft porridge that comforts a sick body better than any medicine. Cook your udon in it. Simmer a block of tofu in it. Cook down another onion in it, and stretch it a day further. That broth is the second dish hiding inside the first, and in a careful kitchen nothing is a byproduct, only the beginning of the next thing. Now I want to be plain about who profits from you believing that gyudon is a shop food. There is a large business in that bowl. The counter chains with their signs on every corner, the frozen pouches in the supermarket, the little packets of sauce you are meant to buy so you can make at home the very thing they sell in the shop. And all of it stands on one notion, that gyudon is quick and cheap because a company made it so for you. But you have just watched me make it. Onions, a scrap of beef, soy and sugar, 20 minutes. It was quick and cheap long before there was a shop, and it was quick and cheap because a hungry woman with 8 mouths made it so, and the shop learned it from her, not the other way round. Nobody schemed to make a whole people forget that the fast, cheap bowl was theirs first. It is worse than that. It is just a system nobody has to coordinate. A slow drift where the shops got quicker and the kitchens got emptier, and the knowing went unpracticed and unpassed down, until a dish that a woman invented out of poverty and cleverness came to seem like a thing only a shop could do, and the grandchildren of the women who invented it now queue up to buy it back. It was never a shop's dish. It was survival. And survival, it turns out, tastes wonderful. The women who fed this country through the hardest years it ever had did it with 100 grams of beef and a mountain of onions and a pot of rice, and their families stood up from the table full, and we are only just beginning to remember how. Now tell me something down in the comments. When you make a gyudon at home, do you put the egg on it or not? And do you defend your way fiercely against the other? Folks have very strong feelings on this, and I would dearly love to know where you stand and how your family ate it. And tell me this too. What was the dish your family made when the money was gone? Every family has one, the cheap bowl that somehow tasted like plenty, and I would love to hear about yours. Tell me. Next time, I'm going to show you something older than any of this, and stranger and more wonderful. A pot of rice bran and salt kept in a crock in the corner of the kitchen, alive, fed by hand every single day, that turns a plain cucumber into a pickle in a night, and that lives on for years and years, passed from a mother's hands into a daughter's bud, so that in some houses the pot in the corner is older than the grandmother tending it. A living thing you feed, that feeds you back forever, and it costs you nothing at all. Next time, the pot that never dies. Until then, take good care of the ones at your table, and keep a kitchen that knows 100 grams of beef and a mountain of onions in patient hands will feed everybody you love.